Rachel.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Good. Well,
So,
well,
one,
two,
two, three.
three.
Welcome to Success in College and Beyond.
It was a great start.
Yes. So, we're back for more learning power. You ready to dive into part two?
Absolutely. Hit me with it.
All right, let's do it. So, we'll start with a big idea today, a major stress point for most college students. I'm sure you can relate.
Yes, I'm ready.
Time management.
Uh, yeah, tell me about it. Between classes, assignments, a job, social life, organizations, where are you supposed to find the time to balance all of that?
You're right, and I know you were so involved in so many things. So it's not about magically creating more hours in the day, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely not. There's no way to do that. I found that that's impossible.
That's right. It's about using the time you have to do. It's more about using the time you do have wisely, working smarter, not harder, as they say.
Exactly.
It's one of the simplest but most effective ways to do that is to make a schedule or a to-do list.
Yes, a to-do list. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of those. I love feeling like things are done and being able to check them off and feel like I've accomplished something.
Yes, right. It's so satisfying. And it's not just about writing it down, it's about prioritizing too. Figuring out the most important stuff, the things that absolutely have to get done, so you can tackle those things first.
Yeah. So you know that even with everything adding up on the list, you at least took care of those essentials, but I'm definitely guilty of sometimes getting bogged down in less important stuff and then, bam, the deadline for something else is approaching. So
It's so easy to get caught up in that social media scrolling or whatever, right?
absolutely.
We've all been there. And another thing that helps when you have a big goal, like a big paper or some project you've got to do, is to chunk it down, break it down into smaller, like bite-sized pieces.
That makes it easier to manage, I feel like.
Makes it easier to manage. It's less overwhelming, right? It's like saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep. Oh, I just pictured that now. I want to picture that.
All right, we could use other analogies, right?
Yeah,
We can be
yeah.
more animal friendly. Maybe, how do you climb that mountain?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
One step at a
I
time.
was just thinking spaghetti, eating spaghetti.
Ah.
One bite at a time, I don't.
Perfect, perfect. And speaking of spaghetti, don't forget about those breaks.
Yes, breaks to eat.
That's right. It might sound counterintuitive, but breaks are so important.
I know they're very important, especially in college. When you've got stuff back to back, nonstop. You need those breaks to decompress and gain composure again to be able to move on to what you're doing next.
You're absolutely right. Those breaks are so important. They can actually boost your productivity in the long run.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
Instead of trying to do like a 4 hour cram session, break it up. Half hour manageable segments, maybe 20 minutes. Take a little break, and then jump back into it after you retest what you've learned in that first section.
Absolutely, and sometimes that's all you need to really feel refocused and energized again to get back into the material. So
you got it. You can celebrate what you've learned, get excited and pumped up for the next section.
Absolutely.
And during those downtimes, they can also be learning opportunities because you can go on walks and do things and talk to people about the information.
Oh yeah.
All kinds of different ways that you can take advantage of downtime moments.
Of course, there's so many different ways. Even you had mentioned once about just making it into a podcast, making your study guide into a podcast, or just listening to yourself, recording and talking about the notes that you have, and just listening to that over and over again will help to implement that into your memory.
You got that right. So it's like taking flashcards to the next level, right?
Oh yeah.
So you can look at flashcards while you're in line, or you can use apps that have flashcards, but you can also listen to it, right?
Absolutely.
There's great tools out there now. One product is the Google Notebook LM. You can upload your material into there, and it can make a podcast for you to learn from while you're just doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you can go work out, listen to that, walk around campus, listen to that. It's pretty neat.
It's amazing. It's amazing those tools that we have to help us learn. Time management's a really important part.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about tests.
Oh, yeah. Those are always a source of stress, I feel like, for everyone. Do you have any tips, like, of the whole test taking world?
Yeah, when you get into college, things are so different. Every professor tests differently. And so the first thing to know is to understand the format that the professor is going to use for that test, right? Is it multiple choice? Is it essays? Is it a combination? Knowing what to expect can really help you plan and calm those pretest nerves.
Yeah, I definitely think like a lot of people get anxious like when they don't understand like what kind of questions are coming. Like it's the unknown, right?
That's right. And that scary part, the unknown, is really what stresses you out.
Yeah.
So knowledge is power in that case, right? So speaking of preparation and practicing tests, I think that's the really important key to being successful in college is to test yourself, if you will. So on my desk, I have a sheet of paper and I have a $5 bill. And I always ask students, tell me 10 things you've learned. And if you can tell me 10 things that you've learned in class that day or that week, then I'll reward you with a $5 bill.
Yeah.
And it's so simple to think about testing yourself. But most people, we just review our notes, we look over the things that we've highlighted. That's not effective. You have to really pull out a blank sheet of paper and test yourself. Because what you can write down is what you really know, not the things that you look at and seem familiar.
Absolutely. Because it's like you're pulling it from your subconscious. You're actively like starting to think about that rather than just reading through it and not like gaining any of that material or knowledge.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you have to do that because that's like the dress rehearsal. And if you're an actor, you have to have a dress rehearsal before you get on stage. And so those practice tests are that way to prepare you for the final test.
Yeah, they say practice makes perfect.
Yes, they do. That practice helps you figure out where you need to focus on your studying. So if you test yourself in some areas and you know that pretty well, then you have a really good idea of what you know and what you don't know and where you need to put your time so that you can effectively prepare yourself for that test.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to studying, you've got to remember those active reading techniques we talked about earlier. Those are super important for test prep.
Yeah, so not just like highlighting everything in the textbook. I think that's what I did a lot. Like I took too much of the information rather than the most important parts, and I think it comes down to really knowing what the most critical information is and breaking that down and staying focused on that, and then you'll pick up all the little pieces along the way.
You're absolutely right, because when you break it down, you start to summarize it in your own words, and that means that you have some mastery of the knowledge. It means you understand it when you can summarize it and put it in your own words. And so if you can do that, then you can take it to the next level and teach it to someone else.
Absolutely.
So someone in your class, you can go back and forth teaching different sections of the material as you're preparing for the test, or talk to your friends about it and just share what you're learning. And that process of teaching helps you to recall, and the more often you recall, you build those neurons that fire together, wire together. So you build a pathway back into that information that's in your brain when you test yourself and when you teach someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And you become an educator too.
That's right. That's right. And you get to share that knowledge, which is a wonderful thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is really what college is about, sharing knowledge that the world has gained so that you can have the world's knowledge at your fingertips.
I love that.
And one thing that might seem obvious is sleep.
Oh, yes. Sleep is so important.
So important. We used to say, well rested, well tested. Because a well-rested brain learns better and performs better. In the military and Ranger School and SEAL School, they stress you out by not giving you sleep. Hell Week is like a week with only 3 hours of sleep because they know that your brain cannot function well when you've had not enough sleep.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't get enough sleep in one night, it's just like drinking a lot of alcohol. Your brain just doesn't perform as well. So sleep is really, really important, which means that those all-nighters, they might feel productive, but they're going to backfire on test day. So you've got to not do those all-nighters.
Absolutely. Especially like I think it's like more stress inducing too because you're not running on much sleep, you get more irritable. It's hard for social dynamics. It goes into all aspects of your life between social dynamics, like your organizations, the people you're around, like it affects so many different areas, so it's so important to get.
So important. And you're talking about it that way. People talk
Mhm.
about being angry when they're hungry.
Yeah,
I think it's the
hangry.
same. That's right, angry. So I think it's slangry when you don't get enough sleep.
Yes.
You can be short and bitey with people. You're just slangry. You just need a nap. We talk about putting children down to get their nap so that they can act better. It's the same for adults.
Mhm.
We act better when we've had enough sleep. So
Yeah.
don't
You
be
know,
slangry.
Isn't it funny how whenever we were younger, it used to send us to our room and we would get so upset about that, and now it's just like, I want to be asleep all the time.
That's right. Why
Yeah.
can't I have my nap time?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I just had to throw that in there. So now, what about like test anxiety? Do you have an advice for dealing with that?
Yeah, test anxiety. From what I hear, it's real, right? So many students face that test anxiety. It's normal, right? It's normal to feel nervous about something.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being overwhelmingly, it hurts your performance, then that's when you have to really think about how you can deal with that test anxiety. Because when it's overwhelming, that's a problem.
Mhm.
So one way to find, there are resources on campus to help you deal with anxiety. So it behooves you to seek out some of the resources on campus that can help you. Deep breathing exercises are things that I recommend. We talked about the flip the switch practice in our class, and so we'll
Yeah.
probably talk about that on this program as well. But deep breathing is so effective. It really, really works. Matter of fact, the military, the Rangers, the SEALs, they use it too. They use box breathing methods, for instance, breathing in to a count of 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4. So that's one strategy of deep breathing. But just making sure that your belly is relaxed and expands when you inhale, and you can exhale just a little longer to help your body realize that it's not going to be attacked by a lion. You don't have to be in stress mode. So when you control your breath, you control that parasympathetic active system gets activated so that you can really, really perform at your best.
Mhm. So it's not really like a fight or flight response. It's more like you're helping your nervous system to calm down by breathing and stuff. I actually use the box method pretty often.
All right.
If I know that I'm getting overwhelmed, I'll use it to help just calm myself. Like 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. It's a really good technique, definitely for like relaxation and just helping to calm the nerves down for any situation, really, whether that's school or outside of school.
Or outside of school,
Mhm.
someone at work is not behaving in a way that you would hope they would, and it's stressing you out.
Mhm.
Pause, take those deep breaths. Nobody has to know you're doing it, and
Mhm.
your system can reset. That rest and relaxation response can be activated, and then you can move forward more empowered, more capable of being your best self in that particular moment. You know, and along with practicing those breathing techniques at any time of the day, really, not only when you're stressed, you can also practice meditation. Meditation and mindfulness practices are really, really helpful in dealing with test anxiety and anxiety in general.
Mhm. And I feel like even the meditation practices helps with more self awareness, like where you're at mentally, and like how you feel that you are going to perform on tests or assignments or whatever for class. So I think meditation really helps with that as well.
Yes, really helps with self awareness, and that's a key element of emotional intelligence. And you've probably heard about those emotional intelligence skills, and they start with self awareness, and that mindfulness allows you to be aware of the emotions that are going on in your body, the feelings that you're feeling, and what's going on in the situation so that you can react to it from a point of choice, not just reflexively reacting to it like you're on autopilot. Like at the holidays when somebody pushes that button that they always push, you can choose not to respond how they expect you to respond when they push that button.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like a whole mindset shift. Like you really have to I feel like you have to do a lot of meditation and reflection and practice mindfulness to really get to that point.
Yeah, you have to do a lot, but the really neat thing is the studies show that you can do a lot in a short period of time. Like
Mhm.
20 minutes a day for a few weeks really does provide some benefits.
Yeah.
And when you're starting a practice, like with anything, start small. If you're going to run a marathon, you don't start by running 26.2 miles. You start by walking a block, and
Mhm.
then you build up to jogging, and then eventually you get to jogging a mile. But If you start with meditating just one mindful breath a day, or like you said, the box breathing, one set of box breathing, 4 in, hold 4 out, hold 4. Doing that once a day is a great start to a meditation practice. Just noticing what's going on in your body as you do that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we'll shift gears a little bit and talk just briefly about learning preferences.
Oh, yes. I've always been curious. I'm pretty sure I'm a visual learner. Like diagrams and charts, that's where it's at.
Yeah, and so being aware of that is really helpful. A lot of people like to use mind maps because it helps them. Knowing your learning style can help you tailor your study strategies. And some people refer to VARK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, relational, but not everyone really accepts it. But the point is that we all have our own preferences, and the key is to figure out which way you learn best, and then use that knowledge to your advantage.
Yeah. Okay, well, so this is all like kind of starting to come together now. We've got the mindset, the strategies, the techniques, learning styles. It's like we're assembling this like learning toolkit.
You got it, exactly right. And it's not about finding one right answer. It's about creating a personalized approach that works for you, using all these tools to help you be a better version of yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So many good takeaways that we've had already.
Yeah, thank you. But before we wrap up this part, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. So, what's resonating so far with you? What do you think that you can apply in your academic journey today? And we'll be back in just a bit for the final part of this deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Rachel.
Yep.
Bye.
I love a little bye.
Wonderful.